Hi, I'm Reyn. I'm the assistant dramaturg of Hell is Real, a new play by Genevieve Simone, currently being developed here at Skidmore College. The play is going to have two readings, April 22nd and April 23rd, 6:30 p.m. at the Tang Museum. With me today is the playwright, Genevieve, and the director and the dramaturg, M. Sloth Levine. So, right off the bat, I'm just really curious about your relationship as artists. How did this relationship come about? How long have you guys known one another? And more specifically, how did your partnership come about for this specific process?
Mm-hmm. We're fairly new collaborators. This is our first big project together, and I feel like we were brought together by the material.
Yeah, I think I was working on this play, the idea for this play, early pages, and Lisa, the chair of the department, had said, we're looking for a play to develop with our students. I pitched this idea. She was like, let's do it. And I knew I wanted to have a director who also had a lot of experience with new plays and dramaturgy, and working with college students. And I also knew that I was writing a play about horror because I don't like horror. And so I was like, it seems in the best interest of the piece to have a director. I was like, I don't know, Dream is somebody really queer who's really into horror, who's experienced with writing and directing and has worked with college age people before. And I was at a picnic for a bunch of writers in Brooklyn, different writers groups, whatever, one of those having food in the park. And I talked to a good friend of mine, JC Pancratz. I was like, I'm looking for this, and they were just like, oh, you should talk to Sloth Levine. And I was like, Sloth Levine, who wrote Entire Manuscripts? I know that name. And then we got a coffee, I think.
Yeah, we got a coffee and sat for 2 or 3 hours just talking about the play. Because you had sent me the early pages. Yeah. And that was kind of you just being here's what I'm thinking about. Mm-hmm. Here's some beginnings of characters and situations and sort of what I'm driving at, what's going on.
Yeah.
And then we sat and we sort of really dived into what was going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I remember thinking okay, cool, this will be a great opportunity. It's a little bit more intensive of a way to get to know a new collaborator. Yeah. Often you get to know one another over a week of development or a couple months. But I also thought well, this is a great opportunity to get to know this play and to get to know this person. And also there seemed just something really nice about if we're going to be making as queer and as horrific a room as possible, having another person in the room to bounce ideas off of, who's also bringing their own entire aesthetic and ideas to it, feels like it'll be really fruitful both for the play, for the educational experience in the room, and then also just for me as a writer. I was like, I want to work with a new collaborator. I haven't done that in a minute. So yeah. I've been really grateful for Sloth.
I've been really grateful to be here. It's been really wonderful to work with a playwright on a new play, especially from such an early stage. That's not super common, but it's been kind of just how this has worked.
Yeah.
And it's been really fun to kind of work in this genre of queer horror, which I'm very immersed in, but from a different angle often. And getting to help a writer is just so dreamy, because I get to do the things that I wish were done for me sometimes, you know what I mean?
Yeah, wish fulfillment.
Wish fulfillment, but also I get to work on the play in a whole different way, that as a writer you sort of don't get to do, through the theater etiquette that we all have. There's some boundaries where it's okay, I don't do that part.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's been a little bit more fluid than I would say in a maybe in a professional development, and professional by that I mean just not within an academic environment. And usually I think that those more hierarchical or rigid roles happen because you have a limited amount of resources and time, and so people are really constraining themselves or constrained to this is the lane I'm in. But because we've had this entire semester to kind of dip back into the play over the course of many months, I feel we've had a much more fluid exploration of what the play could be, and it's allowed me as a writer to take more time discovering what it wants to be, as opposed to really as opposed to rushing for product. So the process has been much more satisfying to me.
Yeah, we've got to be really responsive to each other and where the play is at every checkpoint, and the people who are in the room with us. And yeah, we've gotten to explore several pathways
Yeah.
where we've like really kind of dug into what would be true if this were a factor in the play. In a way where we really got to be like, okay, we're not going to do that.
Yeah, where we really learned that's not the path.
Yeah. Yeah, like stuff has come back around after months. Like, okay, let's play with it.
It's actually that.
Yeah, and then we'll focus on something else, and then we're like, well, actually, that other thing is still itching my brain, so let's keep pulling at it. Yeah.
I love that. That's so interesting because new work development is not something that a lot of students here get to experience. And so when we got this opportunity, it was kind of a new opportunity for a lot of students here. And so I'm just curious from a professional perspective, what is the significance of being in an experience like this for undergraduate students? Like, what does new work development look like outside of an academic setting, and how big of a role does it play in a lot of working artists' lives?
Yeah, for me, I'll just jump in and say it's almost everything I do. The way that I've been able to work and generate work is from myself. As a director playwright, that's sort of just kind of what it's been. New plays are what excite me. New plays, I feel like, are where I get to be the most expressive of like everything I want to be as an artist. And so that's meant my career takes the shape of new play development a lot.
Yeah, I would say that, so the way that Sloth is like director and writer, I'm more of a writer and actor. And I think it's also a huge part of the professional daily existence of my artistic career on both fronts, either writing my own material or interpreting other people's material. I think that what I've learned over time is that new play development is like one of the best places to get to know new collaborators and build the beginnings of potentially very long relationships. It's also we both live in New York City, and I think that working on new plays as an actor, when I started to prioritize getting involved in people's workshops, getting involved in readings, I really started to become more part of the ecosystem of theater makers, and it allowed me to learn a lot more about like what's happening that you're not necessarily seeing being produced. So you're really getting to hear, like, meet other writers, understand their voices, get excited about what they're doing, and then other actors, you're getting like a taste of them, and you're all just, I don't know, there's just so many different ways that this gesture keeps happening because I think within new play development, like on a technical training level, it's excellent practice for like, I have to make a bold decision every time as an actor, having never read this material. And there's also great stakes to it because it's like, you're gonna do it maybe once and then never again. You're also performing without the aid of any design, so you really have to rely on your tools, your voice, your body to convey the world that the audience is trying to imagine. And then it also, so it's technically great training, but then it also is just a great way to stay connected to your community, which is what allows my career to continue.
Yeah, I'd say some of my strongest relationships and friendships in the theater world come from doing readings, and that's sort of how when you need someone, it's always like, oh, I did a workshop with this person, you should cast them. And the this of it all is like, it's just the network being built. It's like just strings being attached, creating a sort of net for you.
Yeah, I had a network, right? I had a mentor tell me like, maybe I was feeling very like frustrated about like industry stuff. And she was like, maybe it's helpful to shift your mindset as like away from like networking as a negative thing and more toward like this being a relational industry. That it is about your relationships, and sometimes that's for worse and sometimes that's for better. But the more you can genuinely build relationships with people and accept that you might not go the whole distance with a project, or you might not stay on the same track as people, but you are in relation and you're helping each other directly and indirectly keep doing this thing that frankly a lot of the time is kind of impossible. Theater is my favorite because it's really hard to do.
Yeah, no, that's theater takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of collaboration. And so I'm interested, Genevieve, in kind of the beginnings of this play. What inspired you to to write about this play first and foremost, and to develop it, especially at this period of time?
Yeah, well, the literal answer is that I broke my leg really badly, like very effectively, and I wasn't allowed to walk for 6 weeks. And so I was in my apartment, not walking on my leg, and I was losing my mind. And I think there was a point when I started to heal enough that I had the energy to even like focus, write, think, and I was starting to get a little stir crazy. And it was October, and I remember thinking like, okay, I'm just gonna do one of those crazy writing exercises where you just like try to write as much of a play as you can in a single day, which is insane. And it was around Halloween, and I think I was thinking like, okay, I'll just like pick a random holiday that doesn't usually get a lot of attention and try to write a play about that holiday, or that could be programmed around that holiday time, which again is never a prompt that I usually start with. But what immediately started coming out for me, because I don't like horror, was I was like, oh, but I love like workplace comedies. And so I started to get really excited about a play that could happen in a haunted house, where we could see like some of the behind the scenes stuff of the people who work in a haunted house. So then I started to like research a bit on this crazy day when I'm losing my mind. Like what are people talking about who work at haunted houses? What do they like about it? And I stumbled onto this really excellent interview with people at a haunted house in, I think, Austin, Texas, who were talking about their jobs with so much like they treated it like it was so sacred what they were doing. And it really surprised me as a person who had never wanted to go to a place where people are jumping out and scaring me, that the people doing the scaring held it with such like grace and like care. And the thing that I really was struck by was this person who said like, when someone asks me to scare them, that's like one of the greatest honors of my life, and I take it very seriously, because they've come here probably to work through something and they're trusting me to hold it. So I'm really gonna scare them because it's like the thing they asked for. And so that clicked into my brain, this idea of like, eventually I started to realize like, oh, it's like role play, but like the idea of consensual spaces of fear. And then from there, I was just like free writing, trying to figure out like, who would work at this haunted house. And pretty quickly, it was like, these two 15-year-old weirdos work at this haunted house. And they're like these envy insect babies who are like, they were very fun. And then I was like, oh, if we're doing this, if it's a space where you can role play and you can imagine, I was like, well, what would happen if somebody went to the haunted house and like had a little bit of a gender discovery? Like if the haunted house opened up some like, oh, I want to role play as this, I want to try this. And that part of it, I think, was like in the stew of my writing, ruminating thoughts for a long time. I just been thinking about like where I grew up and some of the people I grew up with, and how a lot of us came out as queer much later in our lives, and how the place where we're from is not a space that, in my experience, invites queerness. And I just was like trying to imagine like, what if there had been some place, some physical like house that we had gone to as 15-year-olds, and we had that revelation sooner? Like what would have prompted us to realize I'm gay like much earlier? And so I kind of started to write the teeny and the girl, which is like two of the characters' storyline, came from me wondering like, what would have happened if this person that I know went to this haunted house and met someone who just like cracked their egg and then kept cracking it. And so that was early stuff in the play, but it kept coming back around to this like, what is fear? Why do we want it? And how do the people who scare us, like what is it like to be scared consensually? Yeah, and then I honestly, the other part of this play is that I had written a play previously called Bloom Bloom Pow, which came from a time where I was feeling really bleak and feeling like I was stuck in a circle and like life was just gonna be like this forever. And I really wanted to try to write a play that had a different kind of ending. where I was like, enough with the end of the world. Like, enough with there's no hope, enough with there's nothing we can do. So I am continuing to figure that out about this play, but I am excited about a group of people who are trying, even if they try in ways that are questionable or ethically ambiguous, that they are trying to build the world they want to be in and not giving up on it. So those are a lot of the little flavors that came into the piece.
Yeah, I feel like the process for a playwright is so mysterious. there's really like no logic to the process towards like creation, like we're creating on spirit. And so it's really interesting to hear the compounding factors that led to this play eventually. And yeah, like what you were talking about, this play deals with queerness and horror and role-playing and identity in such a unique and exciting way. And Sloth, as somebody who loves horror, and kind of gravitated towards this work, can you speak a little bit more about what about this work really is compelling to you as a director, as a lead dramaturg?
Yeah, I mean, I am also fascinated by fear in a different way, or maybe the same way, because I sort of started my horror journey, like I was a very fearful child, like would not watch horror, could not stand it, and then as an adult, I sort of connected it to my queerness and like this outsider feeling, and like there's so much like academic writing on like queer interpretations of horror, of like Dracula and Frankenstein, and that was sort of how I found my way in. And then the act of being scared, like the consensual request to watch something that scares you or to be part of something that scares you, it really just like tests your limits. It's really like, it's safe because you do know ultimately that you are okay, but it lets you imagine, it lets you feel for a second what it would be like to go through these things without having to actually go through them. And that is always fascinating to me. And then, I don't know, there's just something about strangeness, weirdness, the like fringes of anything, the like limits between two spaces are really interesting to me. That's where change happens. And that's where our kind of conception of what the day-to-day is, what our like cycle is, how that can be broken.
Yeah, and so obviously with the play, it's always so exciting to hear it said out loud and to experience kind of like different bodies play with the text and with the themes of the play. And so I'm curious about what's it been like working with this specific group of students here at Skidmore?
I've found it so wonderful, so heartening. It's been so great to watch the students sort of across the semester as we've come in and out. Like every time, I don't know, there's development happening. It feels like a environment that I would have wanted when I was an undergrad that is just like focused on queer art as a baseline and then gets to work from there. That's been really lovely, and I think students have liked working in this room as well. Yeah, it's just fun to see the new play process like dawn on the students, and like getting to see and sort of help understand what it's like, what the pace of it is like, what it is to get 40 new pages of text and have to just play with it. It's been really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I was talking to Lisa initially about this, the play was, like 40 to 60 pages of ideas and free writing and character sketches, and I had a sense of where it was going to go. But I felt like how much material I had really met the moment of what I think Skidmore was looking for, which was like, we're looking for a play with as many non-binary and trans roles as possible. And so I was like, great, I'll make sure that happens. And so I think we found this way to thread a needle in the process where the play is very explicitly not taken from the actual people in the room and their lives and their real experiences, but it is informed by being a room where there are 2 cis people and like 11 other people, non-binary and trans people. And so it's like really molded by that community feeling. And then I think also we kind of like were able to, I guess what I'm saying is that we were able to wait to like nail down some specifics about the story and the characters until we had the group in the room, which really allowed me to write for like not people's lived experiences, but like their tempo as a performer or their strengths that we were getting to know as we were writing. So there was some exciting moments as a writer. I was like, oh, you can take a monologue like that and shred it. I'm giving you a monologue like that, like amazing. So that's been really fun. And then I think as an educator inside of it, I understood like that the majority of training at Skidmore is not about new play development, or it's not about being inside of this early of a stage. So it was also like kind of, it felt like a great little coincidence, or I don't know, it was a nice meeting of the moments where how early stages this play was a really great window for the students into like how much a play can change. And I've been really impressed with their willingness to just fully go for a completely new set of circumstances when I bring in like 40 new pages and I'm like, your character has a new name and a new situation now, and they're like, cool. And it's been exciting to sort of watch students over the course of the semester really become very curious and very generous detectives of the work itself. Like even last night we were having rehearsal and they were like, well, but on this page, this is said, and then 40 pages earlier, this is said, so we do see a thread through line here. And I was like, I could just watch, this is amazing. And I think what that speaks to like is that there's a lot of hunger for sure to, like as you said, like create queer art and really be able to embody something that is close to our lived experience. And that was also something when we were first coming and talking to students about like, would you be interested in this piece? We were hearing a lot of feedback that was like, in a dream world, I would play like a non-binary person, and that very rarely comes up. That kind of thing. But I also think I think that also speaks not just to like the hunger for queer art, but like the hunger to really be inside of something that's changing. I feel like that's a kind of a long way of saying like I learned a lot from the students about the play, and it was really exciting to watch them take ownership and agency over a very malleable, changing thing. Not for nothing, but I think it should happen more often. I think it should happen more often here for the students, but also for working artists. It's been such a luxury to really work with a company.
We've talked about that a couple times, where the like length of the gestation is it's a luxury. You get to let it sit, you get to let it develop. You don't have to just, I feel like so often in a 1 week reading, you're like, okay, I have to make a new decision here because this doesn't work, and I'm just going to commit to it, and that's what we'll see. And then whether or not it really works because you've written it in one night and then not had time to edit it or refine it, you just put it in front of whatever audience you're presenting to. And then you're like, okay, I guess that was it. But we've had time to like really consider what we're doing. And it just has enriched it.
I think it's also really the amount of time has created, allowed us to create bonds in the room and relationships in the room built on some trust over time, so that we can get to a point where there have been conversations in the room where we sort of like open it up in terms of conversations about like gender and race and other things that are coming up in the show, and being like, what is everybody's take on bisexuality? Like this representation of it, what do we think? And I think that if we were only here for a week as a visiting artist who's coming in, not a fellow student, with a power dynamic like that, I would not expect any student to really be honest with me, because why would you? You don't know me. And so it's felt like a real gift to have that time and to be able to build some trust so that there's some more comfortability with being a little bit more honest about what's happening in the play, which I'm just really grateful for as a writer, because you hope that the thing you're writing relates to other people, but you also hope, or I hope, that people, when they see things that go, oh, or are like, I don't understand that, or I don't relate to that, or I question whether we need to put that on stage, or, you know, the kind of crunchier questions that you want to ask of theater, it takes building a relationship to trust that someone can receive that feedback. So I felt really honored that the students at this point have started to, throughout the semester, have really shared a lot about themselves, and also really been honest about the piece and what resonates and what doesn't. So I just really feel grateful for that, because also I think this play is not just being developed at Skidmore, it's like for college actors. Like, I'm like, this is a great honor to create material that's directly interesting to people at this point in their training. So we don't always have to be playing like 50-year-olds, as much as those people are fun, you know, like it's for this moment. So it feels like a real honor to be here.
Yeah, and I feel like the two of you have just created such a wonderful space within the room where collaboration is just fostered all the time, really genuine collaboration. And so as we talk about length and the process of creating a play and how lengthy it is, do you know yet, Genevieve or Sloth, the future of this play after Skidmore? Do you have any anticipations for where it's going to go? I know it's a daunting question, but
no, I think it is both daunting and also like it's when I think, if I'm being honest with myself, it's like the great luxury of writing is being like, and where could I dream it goes from here? I would say practically, I'm excited to continue workshopping some things about the play. I think I'm so excited about where we've reached at this point, and then I'm like already like, ooh, the next stage of development is gonna be so fun. And obviously you don't want to be in development forever, but I think with a play that's asking so much of the physical world, that's so theatrical, and then also is dense. There's like 7-8 characters. There's 7.
Yes. There's 7 characters that all have really specific relationships with one another.
Yeah, it's a web.
It's a web. They're co-workers. They have ties that go back decades. There's power dynamics between all of them, and some of those characters don't get full scenes where they go, I feel this way, and you feel this way, and this is how we met.
Right.
and this is where we're going.
And
it doesn't have that because that's bad theater.
Yeah.
But there's so much room to play with
Yeah.
how those relationships manifest.
Yeah.
And as a director, there's so much to develop visually and like in the sound design and the lighting design. It's such a visual play. Because a haunted house is like, it's a multi-sensory experience. Like by literal design, it is confronting everything in you. And that is, it has to be part of this play.
Yeah.
And we've done some really fun work, like dreaming up with the cast what those worlds could look like.
Yeah, that's been amazing.
Yeah.
I feel like we have like just people are coming into the room being like, I sketched out what this room could look like. I figured out an answer to this technical question of how this person is in 2 places at once.
Yeah.
So that's been really fun.
I actually I saw Milo earlier, who was working on a painting in their painting class, and they're like, I'm really inspired by Evangeline, and it's,
oh my God.
I was like, Genevieve has to see it. It's this beautiful painting with these rich, like purples and like oranges, and this woman at the center of it who's inspired by a character who's pivotal in the play. And it's just really incredible to be like, yeah, that's how much this play has in it.
Yeah.
There's deep feeling.
Yeah. So the play needs like another workshop if anyone's looking to fund that. And then we'll focus, I think, more on the depth and intricacy of the characters, and we'll also do some more exploration of like the physical space and the sensory experiences of it. My dream of the play, though, really where I want it to go is to as many colleges and like regional places as possible. Because another thing that I am responding to in my body as a person from Ohio who lives in New York is like, this story is about trans people in Ohio, and so the dream would be for this to get produced in any like red state, any state where there are laws against like laws restricting trans people in any way. because I think it also is for the people who live there, and is also, it's a love letter to trans and queer people who are not in like coastal large cities, and the ways in which we build communities and we exist everywhere and we come from the places that we're from.
Yeah.
So,
I think there's a really beautiful thread in it about so many queer narratives have kind of necessarily been about reaching a point in your life where you can leave, where you can get to another place, where you can
or like
travel. There's this sort of like Emerald City of it all, of like you get to the shining place. But this is really about trans people who are committed and love where they are from and are really committed on saying, no, I'm going to be myself, and this town is going to be nurturing to me as well.
Yeah.
And I really love that part of it.
Yeah. So that's the dream, is that like a bunch of places all over the country are like, we really want to build a haunted house in our theater and then scare the shit out of people.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much for speaking with me. And again, for those of you watching, Hell is Real is going to have 2 readings at the Ting Museum on April 22nd and April 23rd at 6:30 p.m. We hope to see you guys there. Thank you.